Hey guys, I'm back looking a little more casual since my dog is asleep on my jacket, but hope you don't mind the dressed down look as well as this pool of sweat. Hope you find that attractive. Hope you guys are enjoying everything. Just to whore myself out for a second, if you want to help out for lodging, I do have a GoFundMe, a Venmo, and a PayPal and all that jazz. But let's start and let's talk about part 2 in the TRO case, of course, against Streets versus Joey Rocket. So you had the meat of it in the last video. So I'd say 75% of what occurred in court happened in that first video, and there was a little left to discuss, although certainly some important issues to talk about that we'll certainly get to. But that was kind of the meat of it, and I'll start with saying, to give you a big letdown, no final verdict, no final decision. That will be kicked. The can will be kicked down the road until next week. So next week I have Aja, Danny, as well as Street. So that's why I did the little whorish money push, because I'll need it. But yes, next week we'll have 3 court cases to talk about. But let's talk about how it all started for part 2. So part 2, we still have the attorney, Joey's attorney, questioning William Goode. And the attorney for Joey kept harping on this one video, a video of which he says he has 2 angles and he has a more honest angle of it. The video is all about William Street screaming at Joey, "Don't touch me, don't touch me, you just touched me, you just touched me," which resulted in an arrest. Interestingly enough, Joey's attorney used that moment to say that Joey was being harassed so much to the point, because he is such an innocent, beautiful young man, harassed to the point where he got falsely arrested. And that is, and the lawyer said, well, that's a prime example of the duress that Joey has experienced because of William's constant harassment. And other bits of video clips were played. Another video clip was played where Streets went up to a Sea Org member and said the "are you touching me" thing. The hilarious part about that is the defense for Joey sort of shot themselves in the foot, because they're trying to project with Joey that he was not connected with Scientologists. Yet he's trying to get to William to admit, he said to William directly, "So is this a pattern of what you do with Scientologists?" William did not confirm that. But then 20 minutes later, the attorney somehow negates himself. This is towards the end, but it kind of ties into what we were just talking about. The attorney said, before you got served, the attorney is asking Joey, before you served the TRO, did you watch a live stream of William? And you went to the police station twice? Joey says no. And then the attorney says, Joey, are you a Scientologist? He didn't call him Joey. Mr. Eckers, are you a Scientologist? Are you a Scientologist plant? Have you ever attended a Scientologist event before September? Joey said no. And this is the very end of the case, where the attorney had a big smile on his face, not realizing that simply 35 to 40 minutes before, he was talking about how Streets has this pattern with Scientologists, thereby, in order to feel sorry for Joey and give him the result that he wants, he is, of course, grouped in with this pattern of actions that Streets has towards these Scientologists. So, again, this is probably the 3rd time where he's directly negated himself and shot himself in the foot. So you can see that these attorneys are pretty remarkably incompetent. So we'll go back to so we're talking about the touching stuff, right? And that's where all boils down to. And there was a clip where you couldn't see much, and Street says, he could have been touching me, I think he was. And there's another angle, and the attorney for Joey tries to prove from that other video that clearly he was not being touched. The judge quickly retorted that she's not going to use this in evidence, because from either of the videos, she cannot get an accurate angle or an accurate picture. So it's not like video number 2 dispelled anything in any single way, shape, or form. That just wasn't the situation. Now we'll talk about some direct quotes. William's attorney, deft and as impressive and quick on her feet as ever, she's questioning Will now. And this is Will's attorney, Street's attorney. Did you use ad money for jail to support people when they are arrested? So she asked Streets this question because, again, Joey's attorney is strictly trying to say his harassment, not even that harassment exists, but his attention towards Joey is all because he's obsessed with this profit margin. If you could dispel that most of the money, and again, these conversations have now been brought up 3 times. The lawyers keep using the exact same and recycling the exact same 3 arguments as he did in the previous session, as well as the previous session before that. So they really don't have much to work with. And so, again, Streets dispels that. So he said, yes, I paid for over 3 people's bail and helped out with that, and tangibly explains how he was pretty responsive in that regard, and that's what he used his cash for. The attorney for William says, one of the videos in question was January 5th, and she asked William directly, she says, you deny that you were harassing Joey. On January 5th, and this is, they talk about January 5th, this is the moment where it's kind of son-to-son combat. Meaning that, and here's an interesting nugget that we glean from this, meaning that Streets brought up Joey's estranged son, and Joey brought up William's passed away son, which of course would allow Streets to be in a state of emotional duress, and it would indicate that Joey was the first one to fire, not Streets. So the conversation is very interesting because it is true that the first mention of the child was brought upon by Streets. And Streets gives a really interesting tidbit for the judge here. Streets says that, and I didn't know any of this, that the child of Joey Rocket contacted Streets to say he's estranged from his dad. His dad is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but just don't deal with him because he's so volatile and he's so insane, and that he's just not even worth responding to. But the son, out of nowhere, went out of his way to contact Streets to essentially say, hey, my dad's a douchebag, which is interesting. But that little moment is what Joey's attorney is trying to say Joey took great offense from, and is an aspect of harassment, bringing up his son, and that simply bringing up Joey's son was the catalyst. So all is fair in love and war. It's completely fair game. That's the reason that, because Streets brought up Joey's son, all is fair in love and war, Joey brings up Streets' son. Now, here's the interesting, and I'll pause for a second because I want to get the exact quote right on this. But yeah, so here's the difference. William says, Streets' attorney says, yes, there's a, so the other attorney, Joey's attorney, questions Streets about this as well. And Streets says, well, there's a big difference between mentioning somebody's son, and he essentially said, like, say hi to your son, versus mentioning a passed away son and saying you're praying for him. And it's almost as re-bringing up an act of violence, which of course could totally quantify as harassment. Yes. So the attorney says, Eckers asked you if you prayed for his son. Will says, in response to Joey's attorney, Joey's son contacted me. He said he doesn't talk to his dad and that I should not engage with him. Joey's attorney quickly retorts, so you brought up his son to hurt him. Street says in response, well, the son contacted me. Joey's attorney says in response, don't you see an equivalence here? Street says, between going to talk to you about your live son versus praying for your dead son? Yes, I think there's a difference. I don't think it's an equilibrium. So in a pretty impressive quick retort, again by Streets, remarking that all of these things are not necessarily created equal, quite at all. Then the attorney, so they kind of switch back and forth. At the end of this, what it is that the attorneys have the luxury to kind of go back and forth, and it's not like you only question somebody for 20 minutes or 2 hours, and the next person, this is kind of, I don't even know the legal jargon, I should, but this is the time where they could kind of ask any additional questions that they might have missed, and they could all kind of switch. So that's why I'm going between Street's attorney as well as Joey's attorney, but I'll make sure to remind you. So Joey's attorney gets hardcore, and he raises his voice and essentially starts screaming because there's a big match. There's a big shouting match, or it's not a shouting match because it's only one dude shouting, but there's a conversation again, and they're boiling back down to the same 3 incidents over and over, that there was a night in question at 1 a.m. Will shows up apparently to harass Joey. Why else at 1 a.m. would Street show up? Well, because there was a gaggle of protesters. And then the attorney for Joey screams, "Are you saying the protesters weren't there?" And he's like, the judge had to admonish him, being like, "Dude, relax." She's like, "Lower your voice." And he says, "Is it so? What do you say? There's somebody you're trying to create conflict with?" And then Streets replies, "Yes, yes, they were already there. I pick up the video. If you want to pull up the video, you're more than welcome to do that." And then Joey's attorney says, "So, are you trying to create is there anybody there you're trying to create conflict with?" And Street says, "Yes, Scientology, but not the police." Joey's attorney says, "So you're trying to create conflicts with members of the church." Part of that, again, he kills himself. So Joey's attorney says, "So you try to create conflicts with members of the church. Part of that conflict is accusing them of touching somebody." So now all of a sudden he's saying it's not good that you accuse Joey of touching somebody. But I just said at the end of the court case, he was talking about how Joey's not a Scientologist. Now he's grouping them in with the Scientologist to try to help him win his case. A bit oxymoronic, if you ask me. And we're winding down. And that was it. So we talked about the TRO. And again, at the very last moment, Joey's attorney says to Joey, "Are you a Scientologist? Are you a Scientologist plant? Have you ever attended Scientologist event before December?" And of course, Joey says no, 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 which is a blatant falsehood. So that's the crux of the case. Hope you guys enjoyed it. A lot of action going on. And yeah, next week we'll be very busy. We have at least 3. But yeah, stay tuned for more vids. Hope you enjoyed it. Au revoir.